Well, folks, here again for the weekly forecast. Finally got back from vacation, and during this last week we dealt with some thunderstorm activity last weekend, and then of course we had some regeneration of thunderstorm activity on Independence Day. A lot of that heavier precipitation on Independence Day laid across northern Nebraska and then slid toward the southeast, petering out as it moved toward the southeast, although we did have some localized heavy precipitation in a few localized spots in Omaha, Lincoln, and then well up along the border of South Dakota and Nebraska, and then the heavy precipitation last weekend that resulted in significant flooding issues in central Iowa and northern Iowa. So do we have more in store? Let's take a look at the upper air models and see what we have in store. And as we go to the upper air models, what I'll draw your attention to is we do have a broad area of high pressure aloft, basically from the Central Plains toward the southwest, with a trough over the northwestern United States. It will slowly make its way toward the east over the weekend. Low pressure at the surface situated over western South Dakota. In terms of precipitation, really most of the precipitation will be right along the Gulf Coast, interacting with that land-ocean interface. And as we get into tomorrow, that high pressure ridge kind of expands and flattens out a little bit on the northwestern side. We do have low pressure indicated at the surface in southeastern South Dakota, but we see most of the precipitation well to the north across the Canadian border and to the southwest. And as we get into Monday, broad high pressures aloft over the entire country outside the Pacific Northwest. High pressure firmly in control over the central United States. Much warmer temperatures really start to build in next week, with most of the precipitation along this front going to be really confined to the upper Great Lakes. I think it's going to be a very weak returns here in Nebraska, and then we start to see that high pressure system expand toward the north. We do have high pressure systems situated basically over the central and southern plains. Very warm conditions, basically in the low to mid 90s. We see some precipitation with a monsoonal flow trying to make it up into the mountain region, but pretty much we're staying dry here in the central plains. As we get into Wednesday, we start to see this ridge trying to back build a little bit toward the west as we see a trough working over it on the east. High pressure over the northern plains, a little low pressure over here in Oklahoma will at least lead to some convection across the front range of the Rocky Mountains, possibly into western Nebraska, but for the most part we stay high and dry. Then we see that ridge expanding on Thursday back into the Great Lakes region. High pressure to our east and to our southwest will keep most of the moisture out of our area. They will be confined to the Great Lakes and of course to the southern Rockies. High and dry over the northern Rockies and northern plains. And then on Friday, we basically see the start of a zonal flow along the Canadian border. We do see low pressure indicated by the models up in eastern Dakotas and to the southwestern Kansas. But in terms of precipitation, most of the convergence once again lies over the eastern United States, with high and dry conditions over the northern plains and the Pacific Northwest. And as we look to the forecast for next Thursday, the following Tuesday, the heat continues in earnest, will remain back in the 90s. And in terms of precipitation, below normal precipitation from the northern plains all the way through the central plains. The biggest issue for us is going to be the high humidity levels and high index values for our cattle.